Volcanoes, one of the most dangerous of natural disasters. They can kill many, endanger many more, killing animals and destroying infrastructure. They are relentless against anything and everything in their path. They are an indestructible force that can terrorize literally the whole world. But there is more to volcanoes than we think, and the list of consequences is all but endless. These consequences will be explained later. But first, what is a volcano? A volcano is a vent or channel that transfers magma from magma chambers deep within the earth to the surface via the conduit. At the surface end of the volcano is the throat. After that there is the summit where the lava comes out. The magma erupting from volcanoes is called lava, and this material builds up the cones surrounding the vent. There are three types of common volcanoes, each one with a different appearance due to the force that the magma erupts from the volcano, but we will get to that later. The explosiveness of a volcano depends on how easily the magma is allowed to flow. If the magma is hot and runny, gas bubbles can expand and escape much easier, thus the lava runs down the side of the volcano for great distances, creating a flattened dome-like shape. When magma is thick and sticky, it is harder for the gas bubbles to expand and escape, so eruptions become more vicious. The explosiveness also depends on the amount of gas trapped inside the magma. How do volcanoes form? The Earth is divided into sections called plates. Over time, these plates move slowly either away from each other or closer to one another. This movement is so powerful that whole continents are carried along by them. This process is called continental drift. Hot mantle rock deep within the Earth rises towards the surface in a process called convection. At certain places, this can force the plates apart. As it hardens, it forms a new plate. This is called constructive plate boundary. In places, the magma reaches the surface, forming volcanoes. When two plates meet, often near the ocean, the movement forces one plate underneath the other. The plate is destroyed, so this is a destructive plate boundary. The intense friction between the plates melt the rocks, causing volcanoes and in other cases earthquakes. Almost all volcanoes are formed this way on plate boundaries. However, some formation of volcanoes do not fit this description. Some volcanoes have actually formed in the middle of plate boundaries. Some geologists believe that inside the Earth there are hotspots, where hot rocks from within the core rise up through the mantle. Near the surface, these rocks melt, burning through the crust, forming volcanoes. As the plate moves across the hotspots over millions of years, it creates a line of volcanoes. An example of this is in the middle of the Pacific Plate. Here, the volcanic islands of Hawaii are continuously being formed. The biggest island already has 5 volcanoes, one of which has been continuously erupting for over 100 years. Deep within the Earth, temperatures can rise so high that some rocks slowly melt. After long periods of time, they form into a thick flowing substance called magma. Magma is lighter than solid rocks that surround it, and as it rises, it collects in magma chambers. Eventually, some of the magma pushes through the vents in the Earth's surface, and volcanic eruptions occur. Erupted magma is called lava. All volcanoes are extremely dangerous, however not all of them are explosive, such as when the magma is thin and runny, allowing the gases within to escape. When the volcano erupts, it flows out of the volcano, rather than spits and explodes. This is called a lava flow, and it rarely kills people because it moves slowly enough for people to get out of the way. However, they can still cause considerable destruction to infrastructure as they pass. When magma is thick and sticky, pressure builds up until the gases escape violently and explode. In this type of eruption, the magma blasts into the air and breaks apart into pieces called tephra. Tephra can range in size from tiny particles of ash to house-sized boulders. A volcano is active when it is erupting lava, releasing gas, or creating seismic activity, a quake or tremor. Once a volcano hasn't erupted for a long period of time, it becomes dormant. However, it could possibly erupt in the future. Once a volcano has been dormant for more than 10,000 years, it is termed extinct. The form of a volcano provides a clue to the type and size of its eruption, which is controlled by the characteristics and composition of magma. The size, style, and frequency of eruptions can differ greatly, but all these elements are correlated to the shape of a volcano. 3 common volcanoes are the shield volcano. Shield volcanoes have a broad, flattened, dome-like shape. Composite volcanoes. They have a steep-sided cone. And caldera volcanoes. After eruption, a basin-shaped gorge is left, circular and usually several kilometers or more in diameter. Volcanoes can be dangerous and deadly. When the lava flows from the volcano, it is slow and consistent, however it will demolish everything in its path. The hot tephra that can explode from the side or the top of the volcano can roll down the countryside at frightening speeds. Volcanoes can potentially destroy infrastructure, flatten cities, and prove fatal to the lives of humans and animals. Volcanic ash can erupt into the sky, then fall back down to the earth like black snow. However, this snow will never melt away. Blankets of hot ash can completely cover the country, becoming meters in depth. This black ash is extremely hot and can travel hundreds of kilometers over the country, enveloping it beyond recovery. The effects volcanoes can have on people are extensive. Survivors and witnesses of such a frightening event may have psychological issues for the rest of their lives. This can affect their everyday activities. For example, they may become classically conditioned, where if they hear a familiar sound, they may associate it with their bad experience. This could cause them to become so fearful that in some cases they may not even be able to leave home because of the fear of being in the same situation once again. One woman on a plane flight from Kuala Lumpur to Perth in 1982 experienced the terror of a jumbo plane she was in losing power as the plane flew through a cloud of volcanic ash. She still remembers the horror that struck through the cabin, the people panicking, expecting the worst. The crew made the decision to drop the plane's altitude to 10,000 feet, a dive which blew the ash out of their engines and saved the plane. The pilot was able to restart the engines, saving the lives of everyone on board. During the time of the Icelandic volcano eruption in 2010, Mrs. Waddell told her interviewers she saw the reports on TV, and memories of that horrifying day came flooding back. Once again, she had to live through the trauma, experiencing the memories that had haunted her ever since. Many people can die or be injured in volcanoes, and this will have a large impact on their family and friends. Young children, for example, witnessing firsthand the destruction and effects of a volcanic eruption can have psychological problems for the rest of their lives. Some individuals may never recover from traumatic experiences they go through. They might be permanently in shock, not being able to move on from their frightening past. They may have lost someone close to them and can't bear the thought of them being gone. This trauma can last forever, especially for younger children who have to grow up without a parent, sibling, or friend. The volcano eruption in Iceland in 2010 is a great example of the long-term ramifications of volcanoes. Millions of flights were cancelled all over the world, leaving millions of people stranded. Business people would not be able to get to work, putting their jobs at risk. Important work may not be able to commence or finish, delaying work such as construction, transport, and marketing. Having planes grounded over a 3-week period caused a huge effect on the economy around the world. The transport of food and supplies also was delayed, or forced to take a longer route to their destination if possible. People also miss seeing their family and friends, which has an impact on their life and society. During the Iceland volcano eruption, I was stuck in Melbourne, unable to return home during the ash clouds. I remember seeing the hundreds of people around me, upset, worried, and some panicking, not really knowing what was going on. Travellers couldn't travel, machinery parts couldn't get to factories, and food sellers couldn't transport their goods. Businesses were finding business increasingly difficult to conduct. Due to the volcano's eruption, Kenya's hothouse flowers, responsible for 20% of that African nation's exports, were rotting in warehouses, rather than on their way to Europe. The only way to recover from this is time. As time passed, flights opened up and marketing, transporting, and travellers were allowed to continue. It was estimated that the travel industry lost $5 to $10 billion per week due to cancelled flights. Furthermore, 40% of the world's goods by value were transported by air. Several European airlines were forced to close down during this period. Airport companies will have to recover from this by refunding flights to maintain their reputation, and possibly offering to pay for hotels, and offering trade the useless tickets for the ones that will take them to their destination once the ash clouds have subsided. It was estimated that airlines were losing $200 million a day as planes sat on the tarmacs. How will we recover from volcanoes? After a volcanic eruption, the recovery that humans will have to go through is substantial. Most injuries and wounds can be healed over time, but the trauma and loss, whether it be possessions or loved ones, may take a lot longer than that. Some may need help to recover emotionally, so they may seek the help of professionals. Others may have to cope with depression and need medication to help with this. This can become potentially dangerous, however, as addictions may occur. The best help people can get is the help of family and friends. Companies that have suffered also may need time to recover. Others may need money and workers that they have not been able to obtain. Humans are not the only things that need to cope with recovery. The environment and all its creatures cannot escape the power of volcanoes. The eruption of Mount St. Helens had devastating effects on the environment and animals. Countless animals were killed from the debris and hot gas, and damaging or destroying large swaths of forest. 32 years later, the forest and all its inhabitants are still recovering. Among the reasons the ecology rebounded are some surprising factors, including the early morning timing of the eruption, the fact that spring had been late to arrive that year, and the amazing ability of insects to parachute in once the recovery was underway. Some species of animal actually managed to survive the volcanic eruption, others escaping and then coming back to the stretch of forest they call home. Together they sowed the seeds of a comeback that ecologists have been monitoring. For hundreds of kilometers around the volcano, ash rained down, suffocating trees and plant life and accumulating in deposits along the ground. The recovery at which the ecosystems will endure depends greatly on the neighbouring ecosystems. If one area is affected by the volcano but is surrounded by a lush green forest, it will recover much more quickly than an area surrounded by ravines. If a volcano such as Mount Gambier was to erupt again, it could have devastating consequences. Geologist Bernie Joyce warned the consequences of even a small eruption coming into contact with groundwater could include hot, wet ashfall, dangerous gases and ash blown into the air, damage to animals and the environment, and pollution in water systems. Although potentially dangerous, Joyce's colleague Wally Johnson suggested that if the volcano was to erupt, we would have plenty of warning, whether it be months or even years. These warnings are most likely to come in an increase in water temperature. If Mount Gambier erupted, even a small eruption would cause devastating effects, affecting thousands of people and countless wildlife. An eruption can lead to lava flows which run downhill towards the coast. These lava flows can be extensive and long-lasting, travelling for tens of kilometres. It would prove hazardous to modern infrastructure such as bridges, roads and railways, power lines and pipelines, as well as being a major fire hazard on the dry grassland plains of summer in western Victoria. In some cases, the rising magma can even meet the groundwater, causing steam explosions. This may form wide craters and produce a lot of ash. The pyroclastic flows could prove to be a huge problem for people who are downwind, clogging up streams, road and rail transport and possibly affecting local air travel. The eruption would force the thousands of people in Mount Gambier to evacuate. However, with warning, this can be done quickly and efficiently, residents and businesses being able to pack up their possessions before they leave. The cleanup after the volcano may take months. However, if we are fortunate enough to have rainfall, it will wash away most of the settled ash, as it did after the Icelandic volcano in 2010. The recovery that the environment and the ecosystems will have to take, however, are extensive. Depending on the surrounding ecosystems, the animals that live there and how badly the area was affected, the recovery of the environment and ecosystem may take years. The effects we would suffer here in Adelaide would include the pyroclastic flows shutting down local air travel, roads being shut down, any imports we get from Mount Gambier would cease, and possible tremors. Since Adelaide is the closest city to Mount Gambier, most of the patients in hospitals would be transferred here, filling them up, and emergency services will have to go down there to assist, and residents would have to be evacuated and many would come to Adelaide.